Christina de los Santos. I'm 17 years old and I attend Belmont High School. Hey, we're here in Lake Park, one of my favorite places in historic Filipino town. I came here since November 2006. I came from the Philippines. I grew up in Bulacan. Bulacan is located near Manila. Bulacan is a province, but it's more like a city because it's very advanced there. Growing up in Bulacan is fun. There's a lot of neighborhoods, and friendly people, and a very healthy place. There's a lot of trees, fresh air, and good friends. I came here when my mother petitioned my brother and me last November 2006. My mother's been here for 6 years. Lake Park is located here in Lake Street, but there's no lake in here. Lake Park is a very peaceful place for me. It's kind of urban, but it's also naturey. We're here outside the gym, and inside is a small gym where you could play basketball, sometimes soccer, and there's also a dojo, and you can do karate. We're here at Lake Park, the Filipino Veterans Memorial. The memorial was built for Filipino veterans to honor them for fighting with Americans in World War II. What I miss in the Philippines is the nightlife and outside life. Because there's a lot of people hang outside until dawn, and they got a lot of exciting things going on. I kind of find it here in Lake Park. The nightlife, where people used to hang and have fun. But there's a curfew here and there's no curfew in the Philippines, so it's kind of different, but it's cool. My first day here at Lake Park is when Diane brought me here. Diane is my best friend. We used to hang here because of guys. We go here to see guys playing basketball. And I kind of like it because I felt like home again.
Hi, I'm Eric Garcetti. I'm a council member representing the 13th Council District and president of the Los Angeles City Council. Historic Filipino town is so important on numerous levels. First and foremost, it's important to the Filipino community because the contribution to the Filipino community, which is now the largest Asian Pacific Islander community in the United States, has never been recognized with a geographically designated area. And to me, even though this is a very ethnically, racially mixed neighborhood, it was important to recognize that history and to have essentially a home for the community, even though the community is integrated and dispersed throughout Los Angeles now. Secondly, it's important to all Angelenos in this entire country because in many ways it's the route into the rich and complex and sometimes contradictory history of the Los Angeles experience and of the immigrant experience as well. For so many of us that had fathers and mothers and grandparents and great-grandparents, or even sometimes ourselves, who immigrated here to Los Angeles. To understand historic Filipino town is to understand our past in Los Angeles, but also to understand our present as well. To look at the diversity, the challenges, the contributions that have been made, and the hardships that people faced. Lastly, historic Filipino town is important because it says to this entire city that the only way into our culture is by learning the specific stories, specific cultures. And in doing so, it's not an exclusionary action, it's actually the beginning of an inclusionary movement to understand one another.
My Life History by Francisco Carino, August 1924. When my friend and I arrived at the Pacific Station, we hired a taxi cab to take us to a house of a missionary who had been in the Philippines. Unfortunately, this missionary was away from home for a summer vacation. We were led to a neighbor who was an intimate friend or a relative of the missionary. The lady entertained us very much. It was then getting late in the afternoon and we asked her if we could not spend the night in her house. She said she could not do it. Told us to leave our baggages on the front porch and then go downtown. A great question came to my mind and said, why can't she give us a room? We are perfect strangers and we do not know where to go about town. Then why does she not let us put our baggage inside the house? I am afraid they might be stolen. These questions came to me because of the different customs that the Filipino have from those of the Americans. In my country, when a stranger comes to our door, we beg him to stay with us, especially when it is getting late in the day. Treat him in the best we know how and keep him in every possible way. This might be the reason why we are noted for our hospitality. Thought that American people would treat the strangers the same way. My Life History by Francisco Carino, August 1924. I was born at
My name is John DeLauro. I'm the Executive Director of the Dolores Huerta Labor Institute, the labor studies program for the 9-college LA Community College District. Prior to the arrival of larger waves of Filipino immigration into the U.S., especially within the period of the early 1900s, there were a series of different anti-immigrant acts that occurred that really shape the type of work that was available for Filipino immigrants. There were various anti-immigrant laws and actions that took place against Chinese workers. When Chinese workers were eliminated in migration, then came in Japanese workers. And then there was a lot of uproar from the labor movement about Japanese workers taking their jobs. And the next you know, there was an agreement passed to limit the number of Japanese workers from entering the country. And so there was this need on the behalf of the employer to find cheap labor to undercut the rest of the labor movement in the US. And so the next place was the Philippines. And so you had a lot of Filipino workers being brought in, especially in the areas of farm work, especially on the West Coast, Hawaii, because at the time the US was expanding across the continent. And that was an area that was really developing the economy of California, was agriculture. And the type of jobs, mostly farm work. It was largely farm work.
America is in the Heart, Carlos Bulusan, Chapter 18, page 140. My brother and I were sitting in a barber shop when a friend told us about a job. Macario borrowed 20 cents from the barber and rushed to the place. Then he came back to tell me that he had been hired. Every Saturday night, he came to town with $2 for me. He was working at the house of a movie director who paid him $25 a month for cooking and doing the general housework. The place was large and magnificent, and I asked myself why my brother was paid only that much for doing all the work in that great household. When I saw the lady of the house with her jewelry and perfume sitting in the house all day drinking expensive liquors, and her fat husband smoking 50-cent cigars, I hated myself for accepting a part of my brother's hard-earned money. On the first night that I went with him to try to help him, he cooked something special and told me to wait on the table. He instructed me carefully. He was very patient. When the dinner was over, the guests went to the library. My brother came out of the kitchen and started serving their drinks. "Boy," said one of the men to my brother, "I enjoyed the dinner." "Thank you, sir," Macario said, smiled, bowed, and withdrew into the kitchen. "He is an educated servant," said the lady of the house. "He was a school teacher in the Philippines, and he went to college here." "You can hire these natives for almost nothing," said her husband. "They are only too glad to work for white folks." "You said it," one of the men said. "But I would rather have niggers and Chinamen. They don't have a college education, but they know their places." "And I won't have a Filipino in my house when my daughter is around," said one of the women. "Is it true that they are sex crazy?" the man next to her asked. "I understand that they go crazy when they see a white woman. Same as the niggers," said the old man who did not like Filipino servants. "Same as Chinamen with their opium. They are all sex-starved," said the man of the house with finality. "What is this country coming to?" one of the women said. I withdrew into the kitchen where I found my brother silently cleaning glasses. I walked outdoor to the end of the road, returned to the house, and helped him put the house in order. It was past midnight when we finished the work. It seemed I had hardly slept 2 hours when the bell rang for breakfast.
His